Buffalo Bills linebacker Matt Milano is out indefinitely with a torn bicep. We're breaking down the situation and where the Bills go from here today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as the playoffs wind down. The sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, folks, welcome in. Unfortunately, we have to discuss a significant injury to Buffalo Bills linebacker Matt Milano. It's now out there that he has a torn bicep and will be out indefinitely. Adam Schefter, in his tweet, said that he could return possibly in December. Sean McDermott, during his press conference just before the Bills take the practice field in Pittsburgh to have the joint practice with the Pittsburgh Steelers, said it's too early to know if he will return this season. Obviously, disappointing news, a devastating blow to the Buffalo Bills defense. Excited for Matt Milano to return. Of course, he suffered the tibial plateau fracture last year in week 5. A lot of excitement for his return. Worked really hard to get back. And then in a tackling drill during practice, the guy has a torn bicep tendon, will require surgery. And so all the fun things that we were excited about to see Terrel Bernard and Matt Milano play together, well, it's on hold, I guess. I think if there's a silver lining with that, it's that Terrel Bernard played a high percentage of last year, week 6 and on, without Matt Milano. So we've never really seen it, although it's exciting to think about. And so there's a lot of things to get into. First of all, how the Bills adjust, what the replacement options are inside, outside, the contract implications for Matt Milano, all of that. And so that's what we're going to cover here today during this conversation. And so let me start by saying this, and I know that this is a little bit harsh, but this is the reality of football. It's a violent game. People get injured. And you got to deal with it, and it's unfortunate, but I promise you, the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, and the Baltimore Ravens, and the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Cincinnati Bengals aren't going to sit around and feel sorry for the Buffalo Bills. You have to move on. You have to figure it out. It's an unfortunate part of the game. They matter for sure, but you can't sit around and feel sorry for yourself. You got to figure it out. And so that's what the task ahead is for Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott and the Bills defensive coaching staff and Brandon Beane if there's a personnel move to make. And so you do have to be resilient, as Coach McDermott pointed out during his press availability today. And so there's a lot to consider in terms of, is the ideal replacement on this roster right now? Should the Bills be considering an outside free agent? Is there a trade target that makes sense? Perhaps. We'll certainly get into those options. But if there is a silver lining, another silver lining, it's that we don't know how good Matt Milano is going to be this year coming off of the leg injury. I know that there are some out there that believes there has been some lingering effects based on the way he's moved during practice. But if something is going to happen, you'd like it to happen now. That gives you an opportunity. The Bills have 2 preseason games before week 1. There's an opportunity here to figure some things out, try things, and prepare for life without Matt Milano. It's a lot harder to do that in the middle of week 5. And you remember what the Bills defense looked like for a number of weeks following the Milano injury as they had to adjust to life without Milano on the fly during the season. It's a difficult thing to do. Now they're in a position to do that now before the games count. And obviously you'd love to never have to be in that position, but unfortunately the Bills have gotten used to playing without Matt Milano. And I don't know what's up with this team and catastrophic defensive injuries. Trey White, like back-to-back years. The Von Miller deal. Milano now back-to-back years. Like this is nuts. Even Micah Hyde misses a year. It's very, very unfortunate. And you'd like to see what this team can be at full strength on defense. And it's August 15th, and the Bills are already without their best defensive player probably for the season. So where do they go from here? Who are the replacement options? We're going to talk about that and more on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with me. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. When your schedule is packed with kids' activities, big work projects, and more, it's easy to let your priorities slip. Even when you know what makes you happy, it's hard to make time for it. But even when you feel like you have no time from yourself, non-negotiables like therapy are more important than ever. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. I know what some of you are thinking, is this it for Matt Milano in Buffalo? Maybe. The Bills don't necessarily have a great opportunity to get out of his contract. Matt Milano is signed through 2026. And that makes getting out of the deal complicated. I think if there's something to be optimistic about, it's that he is locked up, and we're talking about a leg injury and a bicep injury, right? Like very different things. Are unrelated. It's not like he re-aggravated something and you're concerned about the lingering effects. I mean, if anything else, it gives him more time to get that leg back to full speed. Now, you'd like to have Matt Milano. I get that. But if the Bills did choose to move on from Matt Milano, there's no good chance to do that outside of a post 6-1 release next offseason. So you just like they did with Trey White, exact same thing, where you would designate him as a post June 1st release. That gets you $9.94 million in 2025 cap space. However, it does tie up $6.9 million in dead cap in 2025 and another $11 million in dead cap in 2026. Tough pill to swallow. Ideally, Matt Milano comes back, he's healthy, and he's awesome for the Bills. Like, that's what you want to happen. But you got to be honest about it. It is back-to-back years with significant injuries. Whether they're unrelated or not, it is what it is, and he's about to be on the wrong side of 30. It's unfortunate. So what's up now? What do the Bills do? Well, I think the most logical answer to that is Dorian Williams, and Sean McDermott indicated as much during his press conference. He said it's his time to step up, and pretty much said, like, this is the plan right now. It's Dorian Williams. 3rd round pick last year. And you could tell that his head was spinning a bit last year. Fast, physical player. There's a lot to like about the way he plays the game, but If you remember last year, they started him off as a weak side linebacker. Then they try him out at Mike linebacker. Then they put him back to the weak side. And then the Bills have injuries, right? Matt Milano goes down. Bernard goes down later in the season. And they tried Dorian Williams, but Dorian Williams just mentally from a processing standpoint wasn't there, particularly in coverage. And so that's why the Bills had to sign A.J. Klein to start against Kansas City in the playoffs rather than Dorian Williams, because Dorian Williams wasn't ready to go. And so now this is year 2, and I'm certain that he benefits from everything that happened last year. But whether it's been the training camp practices that I've watched or the preseason game against the Bears, I don't have any increased level of comfort for Dorian Williams and where he is in coverage. I think Dorian Williams is a very good downhill player. Fast, physical, takes on blocks. Like he will stick his face in a fan and like it playing downhill. I love him downhill. But in terms of coverage, just not there. And it's the zone coverage. It's being able to understand play fakes and not vacate your space. I mean, the Bears got him on that in the preseason game, just like the Giants and the Patriots destroyed him last year with that misdirection rollouts. I've seen it in camp practices as well. It's a concern. In addition to just regular zone coverage drops where he just doesn't feel it, right? Like you have to be able to get to your landmark and then understand where the routes are coming and squeeze and close. And he's just a guy that gets to his landmarks and just drifts and doesn't really do a good job of leveraging routes, squeezing routes, and anticipating to their zone. Now, if he plays man coverage, he's good because he's a very athletic guy. So if Dorian Williams is your plan, that becomes a major point of emphasis for Bobby Babich and Sean McDermott to position him to be effective, right? Asking him to drop in zone coverage isn't really going to work at this point. Now, there's obviously a lot of good tape that they could point to that can give him teachable opportunities, but he has to be able to make those adjustments and play better in space. And so you're concerned about that just being a bit of a liability for your defense. But it does appear that this is going to be his opportunity. So we'll see what happens with that. And I think for a guy like Dorian Williams as a 3rd-round pick, I mean, this is a great opportunity for him to provide value to the team. And you maybe looked at that pick at the time and wondered, like, what's the path? The Bills have Bernard. They have Milano signed, right? The extension was done. And, like, what's his path to getting on the field? The Bills only play 2 linebackers. He's a 3rd-round pick. Like, how does he become an eventual starter? Well, things happen fast in the NFL, right? Very fast. So this is his big opportunity in year 2. And he's got a lot of run. Like you watch throughout preseason and training camp to this point, he's been the 3rd linebacker. I've said that repeatedly. Like when Milano's had maintenance days, it's been him. When they go 3 linebacker sets, it's been him. So he's been getting a lot of reps, and obviously he's going to get all the reps moving forward. So the Bills have a window here to get him ready, but we'll see how he can develop and how quickly that can show up on the field. So he's the first guy. I'm sure it's probably going to be him. And so let's hope it works out. Like, let's hope that there's a good story to tell. Sometimes all guys need is an opportunity, and things happen. And so I'm excited to see that for Dorian Williams. The other guy is Baylon Spector. That's the guy who I think has been a linebacker 4 to this point. But I mean, I joke about the guy being injured all the time. He just is. In fact, Sean McDermott in the press conference that he just had talking about Matt Milano announced that Baylon Spector is going to miss a week or more with a calf injury. I mean, this dude gets hurt all the time. What can you possibly count on in terms of availability for that guy? And it's a shame because I think he's a good football player. I liked him at Clemson. I think he's had good moments at camp and in preseason. But can you count on that guy to do anything? I can't. Availability is your best ability, and the dude's never available. I think you have 2 veterans, Deion Jones and Nicholas Morrow. I've got a sliver of hope on Deion Jones. I kind of like what I've seen from Deion Jones in camp and in preseason. And if you look at his career trajectory, I mean, there was a point in time where Deion Jones was one of the premier linebackers in the NFL. Not that he's old. He's 29 years old right now. So he goes on this monster run with the Atlanta Falcons. You look like he's a star. Then he has a shoulder injury. He gets traded to the Browns, doesn't play his best football, and then he spent last year with Carolina Panthers. And I thought he did have some good games down the stretch, and then he's turned that into a pretty good offseason with the Bills. If the Bills don't have comfort in Dorian Williams to be able to handle the full workload of the job, maybe Deion Jones is a guy that they consider. Maybe it's a situation where you lean into what you did a little bit with Tyrel Dotson in that long and late passing downs. You figure something else out. You drop out Dorian Williams. You bring in a Deion Jones. Maybe you bring in a third safety if that's Mike Edwards or Cole Bishop. There's options, right? That's what the Bills got to figure out right now. But Deion Jones, I mean, if it's a platoon situation with Dorian, that's possible. He could just be the best player. Wouldn't surprise me. Then there's Nicholas Morrow, who I like as well as a veteran depth player, but he's got a core muscle injury right now, and who knows what the return for that can be. Could be weeks. You don't know. Could be months, depending on the severity of that situation. So it's just funny how these injuries can compound, like at the same position. For the Bills especially, like they got to have 3 guys injured at linebacker right now in Morrow, Spector, and Milano, not to mention Edifwan Ulafosio, the 5th-round pick out of Washington. He's been banged up a ton. It's crazy how that happens. So those are your in-house options. It's probably going to be Dorian Williams. I'm not sleeping on Deion Jones. And if Nicholas Morrow was healthy, that's a conversation worth having. And I don't trust Baylon Spector to stay healthy if he was walking to the grocery store. Now you have to also consider your outside free agent options. There'll be a move here. The Bills will put Matt Milano on some type of list, so they'll probably add a linebacker. There's 3 outside free agents that have some level of appeal to me. One of them is Shaquille Leonard. He's 29 years old, 71-game starter in the NFL. Began his career with the Colts. He was a 4-time All-Pro to start his career. And then he has this back problem. So he has surgery in 2021 to correct nerves being impinged by discs in his back. He has a setback in 2022. And then he winds up getting released after a few games in 2023, signs with the Eagles and starts some games to finish the 2023 season. I think there's a lot of concern about that back and that he's just not the player he was early in his career. But he's out there. Kwon Alexander's out there. He's 30 years old, 88-game starter in the NFL. Really made his noise with the Buccaneers. Then he spent time with the 49ers, Saints, Jets, and Steelers over the last few years. He's an option. Zach Cunningham's another option. He's 30 years old, 86-game starter with the Texans primarily. That's where he made his noise. And then spent a little time with the Titans, then last year with the Eagles. So experienced veteran players that the Bills can consider that are out there right now, and Shaquille Leonard, Kwon Alexander, and Zach Cunningham. I'll throw another one out there. It would be a trade. It's Shaq Thompson of the Carolina Panthers. Shaq Thompson was a 2015 first-round pick by Carolina. So Brandon Beane was the assistant general manager. Sean McDermott was the defensive coordinator. So the first 2 years of Shaq Thompson's career, including being a first-round pick, was with those guys. And I think he'd be a great option for the Bills to explore. Now, he's 30 years old. He missed all but 2 games last year. He had a fibula injury, but he's back. I know he's got a little bit of a hamstring right now, but he's participating in practice, so I think he's healthy. That'd be something to explore. I mean, the Carolina Panthers, if they're being honest with themselves, they're not a team that you expect to compete this year. I think Shaq Thompson's in a contract here. You can kind of see how that would be logical if the Panthers are willing to do it. And obviously, there's familiarity with Dan Morgan, who's the Panthers general manager, who was the assistant general manager for the Bills prior with Brandon Beane. So you could see something like that potentially going down. But obviously, crappy news, right? Crappy news. Matt Milano probably out for the entire season after he missed pretty much all of last season. And the Bills are in a bit of a spot here. Some adversity already. Football's a violent game. Injuries happen. And they're very unfortunate. But as a reminder, the rest of the league isn't going to sit around and feel sorry for the Bills. Got to be resilient. Got to figure it out. Got a season to play. Josh Allen's in his prime. Let's go. Figure it out. Figure it out. That's what you got to do. Why you picked Dorian Williams in the 3rd round last year for a reason. Make it work. But it does suck. There's no way around that. All right, folks. So I caught wind of this. I got this news earlier on Thursday, and so I very intentionally didn't put out a podcast until later in the day because I knew I needed to do this after Sean McDermott spoke at 12:30. So this episode is this episode, but I'm going to quickly turn around another episode where we talk about what happens at the joint practice with the Steelers, and then we also get ready for Saturday night, where the Bills will face the Pittsburgh Steelers in week 2 of the preseason. So a lot of coverage still to come before the Bills face the Steelers on Saturday night. So don't miss anything. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.